all the people who listen to your show, Caitlyn Jenner's. Like, I had a tweet this week.
All the people that listen probably agree with you.
Yeah,
at least a good amount do.
The number one retweeted tweet I have ever had 100, and I tweeted I think a day ago, and it has 120,000 likes. And there was a headline from CNN that said transgender man gives birth to what it was transgender man assigned the female sex at birth, gives birth to healthy baby boy. And so I tweeted, woman gives birth to boy.
Right.
Because it's a woman. I mean, that's not a headline. I'm sorry. Just because the woman believes she's a man doesn't make her a man. Like, biology still exists. Sex still exists. If you want to say she's a woman who feels like a man, that's fine. If you want to say that, and by the way, I don't even care if she gets hormone treatments or if she wants to have surgery. Like, it's a free country. Do what the hell you want. But when you start insisting that I just throw biology out the window, I don't understand why that's any better than I, as a religious person, saying every time you say something, you have to mention God.
Right.
Like, well, I don't have the right to do that to you. Like, well, that's idiotic.
Are you fascinated by it? Are you fascinated by the transgender,
I'm fascinated by the society's obsession with it.
Yes, that's a good way of saying it.
Yeah.
There's not just an obsession. It's compulsory and it's rabid.
So I think that there's a couple of things that are going on. One is that it's very dark, but I think that there is an element of like, this is different, and we get to revel in the weirdness of it. But we're going to pretend that it's all about the civil rights of it, right? We're going to feel like special because we're on their side, right? We're not watching Caitlyn Jenner because it's a curiosity and because it's weird and entertaining. We're doing it because we're on Caitlyn Jenner's side,
but
and we feel really
trans
good about
people
ourselves
forever.
Yeah, right. I mean, Renee Richards was a trans person,
yeah,
right?
I mean, but it's happened throughout history. I mean, there's what was I reading a couple of days ago about a Roman, like there was something about reports of some trans soldier in the Roman army, more than 1,000 years ago. It's got to be, if it exists now and it's existed before it was popular.
Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be a lot of people that turn trans now just because it's exciting. Oh, there it is right there. A trans soldier in the ancient Roman army.
That wouldn't...
Of course.
It wouldn't be surprising.
I'm not shocked.
No.
I'm not shocked.
I mean, it's a condition. I mean,
right.
the DSM called it gender identity disorder, and then they called it gender dysphoria. It's a condition. I mean, like, I'm not saying conditions don't exist.
Dysphoria, but that in a lot of people's mind is labeling it somehow or a negative.
Well, I mean, it is highly linked to suicidality. There's a 40% lifetime suicide rate for people who have this particular gender disorder. That seems to me not to be like a great positive.
Whether or not they transition, yeah.
Whether or not they transition, yeah. I mean, and again, I don't care if you transition, do what you want to do, but
right.
The idea that we as an entire society have to redefine what sex is, and we have to blind ourselves to what biology is, this is something I'm not willing to do. I think that it's actually damaging to kids, particularly.
I'm more than willing to call her a she, and change, but you can only change your name once.
I'm willing to call Caitlyn Jenner. I'm not willing to call Caitlyn Jenner a she.
Oh.
Because you can't change your sex. You can change your name.
Right.
You can change your name to whatever you want. I don't care. But you can't. Caitlyn Jenner is not a chicken. Caitlyn Jenner is not a woman. Caitlyn Jenner is a man, a biological man. And if a man lost his penis and in a tragic accident, it wouldn't make him a woman. And if he were born with high doses of estrogen in his bloodstream, he would also not be a woman.
Right.
You're determined by your chromosomes. And this is not even talking about intersex people. Like, intersex is an actual status. Intersex is a biological status. But this nonsense that if you, Joe Rogan, decide tomorrow that you are a woman, no surgeries, no hormone nothing. You just, tomorrow, you wake up and not decide, but you feel like a woman. Then you have always been a woman. We must treat you as a woman.
Yeah.
You don't have to change anything about yourself for us to even determine whether you're a woman. We just, no. I'm sorry, no. I mean, I had mental illness. I had a grandfather. I get so much shit for this. But this is not me being unsympathetic to people who suffer from a condition that is really tragic and obviously harms people, in terms of, the rates of suicide and depression are astounding. My grandfather was a bipolar schizophrenic, and it would have not been good for him or my family if people had said to him, Nate, you're right, the radio is talking to you. Nate, you're right, the curtains are talking to you. They put him in a mental hospital, they gave him lithium, and then he was better, and he could actually live a normal, relatively happy life. There's no good treatment for gender identity disorder, gender dysphoria, whatever you want to call it, but to suggest that it is a condition that doesn't require treatment, that really it's just that you're actually brain female. Again, this is ascientific. There's no scientific evidence to back this whatsoever. Even these studies that have been done talking about there's a female brain and a male brain. First of all, if you say this to a feminist, you're a sexist. Right? If you say to a feminist, there's a female brain and a male brain, and the male brain works differently than the female brain, the feminist will look at you like, how dare you?
Well, it's also one of the rare times where you're allowed to celebrate classic definitions of female beauty when a man embraces them when he becomes a woman. Lipstick, high heels, short skirt. This is like not sexist.
Caitlyn Jenner was only a woman when Caitlyn Jenner was on the cover of Vanity Fair and a bustier.
Right.
Yeah. But if he had just said, listen, I look exactly the same as I did yesterday, but I'm a woman.
Yeah, if he got a short haircut and dressed like Billie Jean King.
Right. It's the reason why the media loves Laverne Cox, because Laverne Cox has had surgeries and looks a lot like a woman. So
I don't know who Laverne Cox is.
The guy from, the transgender woman from Orange is the New Black.
I never watched that show.
I've never watched that show either, but she's on the cover of Time magazine.
Oh.
Or he's on the cover of Time magazine.
Well, there was the woman in that show. Isn't that the one where the girl who is that the girl?
Yeah. That's Laverne Cox.
Okay.
There you go.
That's a woman or man?
That's a man.
It used to be a man.
It used to be a man.
It's a woman now. Very tricky.
No, still a man, but
transgender tipping point. I'm so out of the loop. I'm that old man who I always wondered.
Look at that headline there, right? It says America's next civil rights frontier, and that's the key. You have a bunch of people in the United States who are suggesting that they want the next civil rights fight, always the next civil rights fight, right?
Yeah.
So the civil rights fight is immigration, or the civil rights fight is gay marriage, or the civil rights fight is transgenders. Okay, how about this? How about there was only one real civil rights fight, and it was about black people who had been historically oppressed in the United States for 200 years.
There had been slaves.
Yes, who had been slaves, and then Jim Crow.
Transgenders.
This is correct.
Yeah.
Okay. The worst that Caitlyn Jenner had experienced was being incredibly wealthy in a high net worth suburb. This is not to say that transgender people aren't discriminated against in some areas of American life. I'm sure that's true, but it's also like behavior is not the same as being born black or being born Asian or being born with disabled. If I'm a business owner and I hire you and you're a man and you come in the next day and you're dressed in a woman's clothing saying you're a woman, but you still have a full beard, like, I don't see why I, as a business owner, am expected to eat the cost of that. Like, that's just, that seems bizarre to me.
Eat the cost is a great way to phrase it. I didn't have a dog in this fight. I was completely open and liberal about it until there was a case where a man who had been a man for 30 years became a woman for a little less than 2 years and then started MMA fighting women.
Yes, exactly.
Beating the fuck out of these women and not proclaiming that he or she used to be a man because in quotes, it was a medical condition that I did not need to disclose. Like, that's not a fucking medical condition.
Right.
And if you ever watch the fights, she
wasn't
winning.
Is this Fallon Fox?
Yes. She wasn't winning because she was skillful. She was fucking manhandling these women. It was ugly.
Of course.
It was horrible.
Of course. Like, this is, but again, it's so funny how the transgender movement destroys the feminist movement by living off of the sort of lies that the feminist movement promulgated. So the feminist movement said stupid things like women and men equally athletic proficient.
Well, that's something that has been repeated very recently, that there's no biological difference in the genders and it's all social.
Absolute horseshit. I mean, I'm just sorry. There's no scientific evidence to back that, and it's particularly true with regard to actual physical capacity. This is just nonsense.
Not just no scientific evidence, but a mountain.
Yeah. I mean,
mountain of it against
my favorite study on this is, you remember there was those commercials about like throwing like a girl, running like a girl.
Right.
Remember there was feminist commercials saying, what is it to be running like a girl? And they would show an adult woman and she'd be running all girly, and then they would show a little girl and she's running, and it's still a little girly, but she's running, like normally. But
fierce.
It's only exactly fierce. It's only society that has forced the little girl to run like a woman. First of all, I have a 3-year-old girl. She runs like a girl. Second of all, and it's not because I'm teaching her. And it's not because her mom runs, because she doesn't, right?
But does she play with dolls because you're a sexist pig?
It's because of that. My daughter started off liking trucks like in the first year, and I didn't give a shit. And now she likes playing with dolls and dressing up in princess dresses. Like, who cares? She's a girl. She's always been a girl. She'll always be a girl, whether she likes trucks or whether she likes dresses.
Yeah, that was an issue with one of my daughters, too. My daughter was a little worried about her. I go, she's going to be a dyke. She's like, no. I go, what's the big deal? You like lesbians. Who cares? I don't care. I'm like, I do not care. And she's like, and then she turned the corner and then but we just let her be whatever she's in. But she was really into like Batman for a while.
Yeah, my daughter is into Batman, and then she was into Wonder Woman. Like, who cares? But but what's funny about this is that the left kept saying, even when I met my wife, right, who's a conservative, and I made her more conservative when we got married because that's what men tend to do to their wives. But I remember early on we had a conversation about this, and I said, women don't throw like men. And she got like all offended. And I said, but that's factually true. She said, right, but it's insulting. It's like, no, that's factually true. Like, I'm sorry, there have been studies. Out of 1,000, if you took a woman throwing a baseball and then 1,000 men throwing a baseball, the woman will throw faster than out of those 1,000 men, this is in the book The Sports Chain, the woman will throw faster than 2 of those men out of 1,000. And we're not talking about like Goose Gossage here. We're talking about like
regular humans.
We're talking about the accountant from down the block. We're talking about Paul Ryan flinging a baseball.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's not the way this stuff works.
Well, that was the counter that Fallon Fox used, was that she actually lost to a woman. She lost to a woman named Ashley Evans Smith. But what I said was, no, this proves my point, is that you're not good. You're just a man.
Well, this was, John McEnroe got slapped all over the lot when he said about Serena Williams. She's great. Serena Williams is great and all. But if Serena Williams were he said she's the best female player ever. And they were like, well, why not just the best player ever? And he's like, because she's a woman. Like, if she were a man, she'd get her ass kicked. And everyone was like, no, how dare you? There is something called the Universal Tennis Ranking. She would rank in the mid-ranks of college male players if she were a man. And Serena Williams had said like 5 years ago, no, I never want to play with like Andy Roddick. He'd kill me. She actually did this. There was a 200th ranked man in the world who she wanted to just warm up with. And they played a normal match he won 6-1, 6-0. Right, and he was like ranked 200th in the world, and the only shock was that he dropped a point to her.
Well, there was the issue of Renee Richards when Renee Richards started playing tennis against women and kicking their ass, and he was a middling player at best as a woman, or as a man rather, but as a woman, he was a fucking killer.
This is what should insult feminists. It turns out that Caitlyn Jenner won all these Hero of the Year awards and everything. We men are so great that even when we decide to be women, we're better than women.
That was the most bizarre thing. He'd only been a woman for 6 months.
But he's amazing
he won
at
Woman
it.
of the Year.
He's incredible at it. He was a natural.
He's a gold
medalist. It turns out that men are better
woman.
even at being women than women. Like, no wonder feminists are pissed, and they should be. And this whole glossing over the difference between feminists who have been claiming that women are distinct from men and important and different and better in certain ways. Like, I don't understand how you hold these two simultaneous thoughts. Hillary Clinton needs to be president because we need a female president. But also, Donald Trump, if he said he was a woman tomorrow, would be a woman. How do you hold those two simultaneous thoughts? I always thought that in the last week of the election, if Trump thought he was going to lose, he should have just declared himself a woman, and then he too could have run as the first female president.
That would have been amazing.
That would have been incredible trolling.
If he just showed up with a dress and lipstick.
Man. And the entire left
I
could have
identify as a woman. I'm the best looking woman ever. I've been voted as the best looking woman of all time.
Melania's now a lesbian.
The great argument